In this world, there are places unlike anywhere else, places that do not treat humans as visitors, but rather as fragile elements within a much larger system. A system that explains its rules to no one and offers no chance to fully understand it before you are forced to experience it yourself. These places are not defined only by beauty or strangeness, but something far deeper than that. Deep within the Himalayas, where towering peaks stretch like walls separating the earth from the sky, lie regions completely isolated from the modern world. Small villages cling to these mountains, barely reachable by roads, where life does not follow the fast rhythm of the outside world. In these places, people live by rules entirely different from what most of the world knows. Everything depends on a fragile balance between survival and reliance on nature. There is no comfort, no certainty, only a new day shaped by whatever the mountain allows. In some of these regions, one of the most intense and visually striking human practices takes place. Hunters make their way toward sheer vertical cliffs where giant honeybees build their massive hives in locations that are nearly impossible to access. This is not an ordinary task. It is an ascent into places where mistakes are not tolerated. They use ladders made of rope and wood, hanging freely over vast emptiness. Every movement depends on precise balance between body, rope, and rock. The wind there is not just air, it is a force that constantly tests their endurance. The bees in these regions are not like the ones we usually know. They are large, aggressive, and fiercely protective of their hives, defending them like a full army. The smoke used by the hunters is not protection, it is only a temporary barrier meant to delay confrontation. In another place entirely, deep within the European Alps, a different kind of challenge emerges, not in forests or deep valleys, but on the sheer rock faces themselves. A route known as one of the most dangerous climbing paths in the world, where there is no real ground to walk on, only a series of metal cables anchored into the rock and iron ladders suspended above the void. Here it is not about strength alone, but about complete control over both mind and body. The altitude is so extreme that looking down is not just a thought, it becomes a full experience of emptiness. The mountains do not feel like they surround you. Instead, it feels as if they disappear beneath you entirely. Every single step demands a clear decision, because hesitation here is not an option, it is a danger in itself. And at some point, the only sound you can hear is the wind, as if the mountain itself is testing your silence. In Southeast Asia, within a vibrant city like Hanoi, a completely different scene unfolds, yet it carries the same underlying idea: coexistence with danger. There, a massive train passes through an extremely narrow street, separated from homes and cafes by a distance so small it almost seems impossible. Life in this place continues in an almost surreal normality. Children play, people sit casually, and houses open directly onto the railway tracks. But when the train approaches, everything changes in an instant. People begin to move quickly, pulling in chairs, closing doors, stepping away from the tracks. It feels as if the entire city shares the same breath and then holds it. The train rushes through at high speed, so close that the sense of distance disappears completely. And then, just seconds later, everything returns to how it was, as if nothing had happened. as if danger itself has become part of daily life, not something to question, but something to live with. On the other side of the world, in the United States, there is a trail that follows an incredibly narrow mountain ridge where walking feels less like hiking and more like balancing on the edge of a blade. On both sides, deep drop-offs stretch into the distance with no clear end in sight. There are no solid barriers, no complete protection, only metal chains anchored into the rock. The trail itself is not particularly long, yet its intensity has little to do with distance. Instead, it comes from the constant feeling that the ground is psychologically unstable, even when it is physically secure beneath your feet. The wind is not merely moving air, it becomes an additional force, testing your ability to remain steady. In Hawaii, a completely different scene unfolds, yet it is even more violent. Here, molten lava meets the ocean in a direct and dramatic collision. The lava rises from deep within the earth at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius before flowing toward the cold waters of the Pacific. When these two forces meet, there is no balance, only eruption. Water instantly transforms into dense steam, filling the air with clouds of scorching gases, while new land forms along the shoreline in an unstable process that seems to create and destroy itself at the same time. Nothing about this landscape is permanent. In China, on the slopes of Mount Huashan, one of the most intimidating pathways in the world clings directly to a vertical cliff face. The wooden planks that form the route appear remarkably simple, yet they are suspended above a vast drop so deep that its bottom seems to vanish from sight. Walking here is not a test of speed, it is a test of complete control over fear. Every movement must be deliberate, every step must be certain. A single step may seem insignificant, yet it is taken above open emptiness. Deep within the Andes Mountains of South America, a train moves across elevations exceeding 4,000 meters above sea level. The air is different there, thinner, colder, as though every breath demands a little more effort than the one before. The train crosses long bridges suspended above deep valleys and passes through tunnels carved directly into solid mountain sides. The entire journey feels as if it exists between two worlds, the world of the earth below and the world of the sky above. And across all of these places, one question emerges without a clear answer. How can the same planet hold such a remarkable contradiction between beauty and danger? In this world, the challenge does not end with mountains, cliff edges, or isolated villages. It extends into places where nature itself seems locked in a constant struggle against the very idea of stability. Places where the ground never truly rests, where water refuses to remain calm, and where the air itself can change without warning. It is as if everything exists within a system of unseen forces, moving beneath the surface of what appears to be order. Deep in New Zealand, there is a geothermal lake that appears calm at first glance, yet it exists within one of the most geologically active environments on Earth. The water is not simply water, it is a mixture of intense heat, dissolved minerals, and energy rising from deep beneath the surface. Steam rises continuously, as if the Earth itself is breathing from within. From a distance, the surface seems peaceful, but beneath it, a constant process is unfolding. extreme temperatures, unstable pressure, and geological formations that slowly but relentlessly reshape the landscape over time. In Thailand, a historic railway emerges from a story shaped by extraordinary hardship during a time of war. This railway was more than an engineering project. It was a harsh test of human endurance under conditions that are difficult to imagine today. Its route cut through dense jungles, rugged mountains, and deep river valleys, built in an environment where comfort and safety were virtually non-existent. Today, when trains travel along this line, the scenery appears calm and peaceful. Yet beneath that tranquility lies a heavy history marked by forced labor, suffering, and immense human sacrifice. Every section of track, every bridge, and every tunnel stands as a reminder of a chapter that came at an enormous cost. In India, atop some of the country's ancient hill forts, there are stairways carved directly into the rock at angles that approach the vertical. These steps were never designed for comfort. They were designed simply to be possible. Climbing them feels less like following a staircase and more like confronting the mountain itself. Every step demands precise balance. As the incline is steep, the rock can be slippery, and there is little in the way of true protection. In Pakistan, towering mountain ranges create some of the sharpest natural contrasts on Earth. Far below, the landscape can be dry, hot, and unforgiving. Higher up, freezing temperatures and powerful winds dominate the terrain. Between these extremes lie narrow roads carved into unstable slopes, threading their way through a constantly changing environment. These routes are rarely predictable throughout the year because the mountains themselves are always in motion. Rockfalls, sudden shifts in weather, and dense fog can appear without warning, transforming familiar paths into entirely different landscapes within moments. In France, there is a remarkably unusual coastal road that disappears completely beneath the sea during high tide. At certain times of the day, the road is fully visible and can be crossed without difficulty. Yet only a few hours later, rising waters cover it entirely, causing it to vanish from sight as though it never existed. Then, as the tide retreats, the road emerges once again. This constant cycle transforms the route into something more than a road. It becomes a natural clock governed entirely by the rhythm of the ocean. In Brazil, vast networks of underground caves extend beneath the surface, stretching for hundreds of kilometers in some regions. These caves are far more than empty spaces within the earth. They are complex natural systems shaped over millions of years by water, rock, and time. Some passageways are so narrow that movement becomes a careful challenge, while others open into enormous chambers so vast that light cannot reach their farthest edges. The darkness here is more than the absence of light. It is an entirely different environment, a world separated from the rhythms of the surface. In Australia, colossal sea cliffs rise high above the ocean, standing as silent witnesses to one of nature's longest battles. Below them, powerful waves crash relentlessly against the rock day after day, year after year, for thousands of years. Yet these cliffs are not as permanent as they appear. With every wave, every storm, and every impact, the ocean slowly reshapes them. The process is almost invisible in a single moment, but over time it becomes impossible to ignore. In the Kuril Islands, stretching between Russia and Japan, volcanoes rise from one of the most remote and dynamic regions on Earth. These islands are far from geologically stable. They exist within a landscape shaped by powerful tectonic forces, where earthquakes, volcanic activity, and fierce ocean storms continually influence the environment. In Portugal, along the coast of Nazaré, some of the largest waves on Earth rise from the Atlantic Ocean. These waves are not shaped by surface conditions alone. Beneath the water lies a unique underwater canyon that amplifies the ocean's energy, causing incoming swells to grow to extraordinary heights before reaching the shore. In Spain, there is a remarkable rocky landscape known for its extraordinary natural formations. At first glance, the shapes appear as though they were carefully sculpted by human hands. Yet, in reality, they are the result of millions of years of natural erosion. Wind, water, temperature changes, and the relentless passage of time have gradually carved the stone into forms that seem almost impossible to believe. In Turkey, stunning white terraces are formed by flowing thermal mineral waters. These natural formations evolve slowly over time as the mineral-rich water deposits layer upon layer, gradually hardening into bright white stone basins. In the United States, there are remote regions hidden within deep canyons, accessible only through very limited and difficult routes. Some of these areas are home to towering waterfalls that plunge from great heights, surrounded by rugged rock formations and unstable terrain shaped by erosion and time. The landscape is harsh and dramatic, where steep cliffs and narrow passages make movement challenging and often unpredictable. In Indonesia, volcanic lakes appear in striking and unusual colors, shifting between shades of blue, green, and white, depending on the chemical activity within them. These lakes are far from stable. They are directly influenced by the volcanoes beneath them, keeping them in a constant state of transformation. In Europe, there are mountain ranges shrouded in mist for much of the year, where the peaks seem to float above the clouds, while the valleys below disappear completely from view. The landscape creates the illusion of a world divided into separate layers, each existing in its own realm. In Asia, there are mountain roads that cut through some of the most rugged landscapes on Earth, where the terrain can change abruptly between jagged rock formations and steep, unforgiving cliffs. These routes were never designed for comfort. They exist for one purpose alone: passage. In Africa, vast deserts stretch across the horizon, appearing at first glance to be completely devoid of life. Yet beneath that seemingly empty landscape lies a network of delicate ecosystems operating in silence. Plants, insects, and microorganisms have adapted to survive in conditions where water is scarce and temperatures can be extreme. In the end, when we look at all of these places together, we realize that the real question is not why they are dangerous or beautiful. The real question is why we assume we fully understand this world in the first place. Because the simple truth is that everything we see is only a small part of something far greater, a system that never stops, never waits, and never explains itself. It simply continues, operating in silence, with precision and power beyond anything we can fully imagine. And
If the strength, mystery, and wonder of this world have fascinated you, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which of these places filled you with the greatest sense of awe, and which landscape made you see the grandeur of our planet in a completely different way? Our journey is not over yet. There are still countless secrets waiting to be discovered.